Hi, I'm Sharon Jaynes. Have you ever wondered what God really thinks about women? Well, I can assure you that there are thousands of women all around the world who've asked that very question, including me. For years, I studied and prayed to answer this question, and God kept taking me back to the ministry and the messages of Jesus. See, when Philip asked Jesus to show him the Father, Jesus said, "If you've seen me, you've seen the Father." And the writer of Hebrews tells us that Jesus is the exact representation of God. So if we want to know what God thinks on any subject, we read and study His Word, and we look at the life of Jesus. In What God Really Thinks About Women, I began at creation to see that God created woman as His female image bearer to serve with Adam. She was God's grand finale, His masterpiece. And after God created Eve, what was good became very good. But a lot changed in those years before Jesus was born. The Roman and Greek cultures had influenced the society to such a degree that by the time Jesus made His first cry in Bethlehem, women were viewed as less than men in every way. They were considered to be unteachable, unreliable creatures who weren't allowed to testify in court, to sit under a rabbi's teaching to study the scriptures, or to talk to men in public, even their own husbands. Even in the temple, the women were kept behind a partition away from the men. But Jesus came to change all that. Even as we turn the pages from the Old Testament to the New, we see for the first time that women were listed in the genealogy, and that should give us a hint that God was up to something. In What God Really Thinks About Women, here's what we'll discover. In a culture that didn't teach women, God sent Gabriel to Mary for a private tutoring lesson on who Jesus was and what He was coming to do. Mary of Bethany was welcomed into Jesus' classroom, even though her sister didn't approve. And Jesus crossed racial, religious, and gender boundaries when He spoke with the Samaritan woman at the well. And she was the very first person that He told His true identity to, that He was the Messiah. And He told that to a woman. And then we watch as she drops that water jug and turns to evangelize her entire village. We're going to also meet a woman with the chronic bleeding as she reached out to grab hold of her healing. But Jesus didn't let her slip away with that healing. He called her to testify, to speak publicly about what had happened. The woman with the crippled back, well, she had to walk from behind that woman's partition to go up front to receive her healing. The woman with the alabaster box, she had to venture through that forbidden zone of men to anoint Jesus' feet. And then there's my favorite, Mary Magdalene. When Jesus was resurrected from the dead, He didn't first appear to Peter or to John, but He waited to reveal His resurrected form to Mary Magdalene, a woman. And then He told her to go and tell the disciples. Friends, that is radical, and it gives us just a glimpse about what God really thinks about women. He gave them leading roles in His redemptive story. Time and time again, we'll see how God affirmed His love for His daughters through Jesus. He ignored those cultural taboos, and He risked His reputation to save theirs. Jesus spoke openly with women, and He respected them in a way that was just unheard of in those days. What Jesus did for women hasn't been duplicated in any other world religion. He is proof that God loves us. My hope and prayer is that women everywhere will begin to see themselves as God sees them, that they'll write their names into the script and realize that just as Jesus was the hero in each of the New Testament leading ladies' stories, He's the hero in ours as well. And that hero takes our breath away with His amazing love.